Get ready to hear what is a national scandal. There have been over 20,000 Australians who have contracted hepatitis and HIV from tainted blood products, but politicians have swept their plight under the carpet. These are people like haemophiliacs. In Britain, the same thing happened, where it's been called the worst peacetime disaster since the war. They've just launched a commission of inquiry, but listen to this. Despite our population being 3 times smaller than the UK, we have twice as many victims. Yet nothing's happening. Mark Ward is a health activist from the UK who's been instrumental in getting their inquiry. Welcome to the studio, mate.
Thank you for having me, Bill. Nice to be here.
Now, Mark, you're a victim of tainted blood products. What are you suffering from?
The list is very extensive. The main ones are HIV, and my status is AIDS, or was AIDS. Hepatitis C, hepatitis B, hepatitis E, the subsequent genotypes within hepatitis C. I was infected with cytomegalovirus, CMV, Epstein-Barr virus, and parvovirus B19. It does. And also I was exposed to the human form of mad cow's disease, CJD. I had blood that came from somebody who died from it.
Now, you're a haemophiliac. Explain to us, how were you infected, mate?
Haemophilia is a genetic blood disorder, so you're born with it. You don't catch haemophilia. It tends to be females are the carriers and the boys get it. So I was born with the blood disorder, and to treat that blood disorder, they used the blood products.
Yeah.
And it was these blood products that they used.
So the blood products were tainted?
Yeah, highly infectious, yeah.
People might wonder how on earth this could happen, but all the donated blood was simply thrown into one big vat to produce the products, right?
That's right, yes, up to 10,000 donations.
And you only needed one donation to be tainted for the whole batch to be spoiled?
Yes, yeah. So if you're taking 10,000 people's blood, sticking it all in one big pot, the sources that they were harvesting the blood from as well, it was places that no sensible person would take it from.
Now, surely doctors both here and in the UK knew the risks, mate.
Oh, definitely, yes, because there was already a lot of research into viral activation within blood before I was even born.
So they knew this was going on?
Yes.
They knew the blood was tainted?
Yes.
And yet they used it?
They did. And in the case of the haemophiliacs, they used our blood with non-consensual research. So like the hepatitis B vaccine and testing kits. If you're designing a testing kit, you obviously need to have a regular supply of blood you know is infectious to test your product. So they used the blood from haemophiliacs.
It sounds unbelievable.
It's very Second World War Nazi for me. The experimentation goes to so many different levels, and even to the fact, Bill, where a health minister queried the amount of money that was being spent on research animals and said use haemophiliacs because they're cheaper than chimpanzees.
Tell me what one other health minister said.
He was asked about with regards to AIDS, he was asked about all the importation of blood products. This was in the early 80s and, like I say, connected to AIDS. And his response was, as it's only haemophiliacs dying of AIDS, nobody else has to worry about it. So
again, that's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're cheaper than chimpanzees, and we know, well, as it's only them dying, nobody really matters.
I'm talking with UK health activist Mark Ward. Mark, so the authorities knew and the government knew. And despite an Australian Senate inquiry calling for accountability, nothing's happened. It must make Aussie victims feel forgotten, eh?
I would imagine it makes Aussie victims feel very similar to all victims around the world of this scandal, worthless. And I mean, how can any government, not just the Australian government, but any government, be in a position of power to protect their citizens and then in the same breath say to their citizens, well, you're not even worth an inquiry because being as you're sick, we harmed you further, but nobody really cares. So just hurry up and die. That's what it seems to be. The quicker we die, the problem goes away.
I took somebody to the Red Cross here for compensation and was basically told to rack off. Is that what happens in England?
Yes, they find ways around it. So every time we've applied or we tried for compensation, the get out of jail free card the government have been using in the UK is that because liability has never been found, then compensation doesn't need to be paid. But they actually blocked us from getting that proof of liability. They've kept us out of court, and now that this new public inquiry has come along, we've also at the same time running parallel managed to grab or get a group litigation order, and we have now finally got a legal process running at the same time.
What do victims want, mate? An apology, compensation, or both?
If we're talking about the victims in the UK, we had an apology from the former Prime Minister David Cameron.
He gave an apology, did he?
He did, yes.
What did he say?
In the House of Parliament, he said that he apologises on behalf of the British government for a scandal that should never have happened. And actually, to be honest with you, Bill, it was just empty words, because when he said that, he pledged £120 million for victims to help them because so many live in poverty. Then we've got the current Prime Minister, Theresa May, who over 7 months ago now announced this public inquiry. And since that announcement, 60 people have already died. And we've only just been given the judge who's going to look at the inquiry. But I think some people wanted an apology, and then because the apology felt so heartless, it was just words. He could have turned around and read the bus timetable, and it didn't really mean a lot. But the truth is what people really want: justice to be done, seen to be done, and the recognition of the harm that has been inflicted upon us. And it's
the knowing harm, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, the knowing harm. We know what was done to us. I've spoken to so many mothers who lost their little boys in complete terror and fear, and they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what had been done to them.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what side of the world you're on, that same thing would have happened here in Australia.
In Australia, there's more victims than in England, but we've had nothing.
No, I find that deeply disturbing, because to think that in this world where everything is globally connected, especially within medicine, there was public health authorities around the world working with each other. And I've seen research papers that, again, date back to just before I was born, where they're talking about research, and actually they were working with colleagues from around the world. That's how medicine works.
So what about those who knew, Mark? Those who have swept this scandal under the carpet? Should some of them be in jail?
Oh, definitely. There were crimes committed. Definitely, because just the non-consensual research. You don't go testing little boys using unlicensed tests and then withholding the results just to pervert the course of justice, because that's what happened.
Do Australian victims want more than just an apology?
Because of the Senate saying that an apology should be given, and here we are, I think it's 14 years on, no apology has been given, then I would, if it was me, I would definitely want more than an apology now. And I think that Malcolm Turnbull has the perfect opportunity here to say, OK, Australia will look at this, we will deal with this properly, and not only will victims here in Australia get a written apology so they can prove to their loved ones they did nothing wrong. This isn't about them. This is what was done to them. But I think also, if a proper inquiry into the scandal, where everywhere else they've investigated it, the crimes have been committed, everybody's guilty, it's there. So same products, same methods used in Australia, Ireland, UK, Canada, United States of America. It's here in Australia. Get a grip, deal with the tragedy and help these people whilst there are still people to help. Surely that's just humanity.
Mark Ward, 17 years ago I held a meeting on this in my church, and it was full of people, full. We had the meeting last Friday and most of them had died.
Yeah.
God bless you, mate, and more strength to you on what you do.
Thank you.